Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Long time no see. It's good to be back. The spring 2014 semester here at IUP is underway, and so is the Big Hit. I'm your host, Josh Hill. We've got a lot to talk about, but we are going to really focus on the Super Bowl. Super Bowl Sunday coming up, the Denver Broncos and Seattle Seahawks. Who is going to win the game? We're going to give you our X factors, preview the game, and give you some predictions as well. We also have to talk about the National Hockey League. Do the Pittsburgh Penguins need to get a winger to win the Stanley Cup with Pascal Dupuis' absence? And in the NBA, is Kevin Durant really the MVP? And if not, who is? And then in the Crimson Huddle, the IUP Crimson Hawks men's and women's basketball team battled their rival Slippery Rock in a whiteout, and what a weekend it was. Our WIUP-FM analyst will recap those games, and then we'll close the show off with the 2-minute drill, a staple here at the Big Hit. It's the Big Hit on your television and on YouTube right now. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into the Big Hit right here on IUP-TV and YouTube. I'm your host, Josh Hill. We're going to begin in the penalty box, lacing up our skates and talking about the NHL. Joining me for that are our NHL analysts, big-time hockey fans on the far left. It's Mark McKenna, and in the middle, in a very similar shirt, it's Melissa Essing. And let's just jump right in and talk about the Pittsburgh Penguins, the team that really almost everyone seems to aspire to be these days. They are finally starting to get healthy after they've been ravaged by injuries throughout the season. But some bad news for the Pens is that Pascal Dupuis will miss the remainder of the season with an ACL injury. Do the Penguins need to go out and make a trade for a winger to play alongside Sidney Crosby to win the Stanley Cup?
Honestly, I don't feel that they have to make a move. It couldn't hurt if they were able to pick up someone with veteran leadership. Losing Pascal Dupuis is kind of a blow, but if you look at the depth of this team, I think that they have a great chance of going deep into the season. They have a foothold on the Metropolitan Division. Going into the playoffs, they have Bo Bennett coming back. They have so many weapons at center, at left wing, that they'll be completely fine. I think that they'll end up actually making a Stanley Cup run by the way they're playing this year.
I agree with that. They're well on their way to the playoffs, obviously. They did such a great job considerably since they didn't even have most of their team, and it became the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton Penguins for a good amount of time there. But I do think that missing someone so significant of Pascal Dupuis' caliber, I think that it could be necessary to make a trade and possibly get another winger in there with Crosby and Kunitz, because it is the playoffs, and that's a much bigger run than the regular season, and that could be a necessary move for them to make if they want to look at the Cup.
And they've been historically known to do that. Last year, they wanted to make a Stanley Cup run, picking up, I believe, Josie Jokinen and a strong defensive player, and so it's something that is possible, and they should probably look into. But I don't think it's like vital that they need to do it.
Yeah, if they do it though, they do need to do it very soon, because you cannot just throw someone in there a month, even weeks before the playoffs occur. You would have to do that soon so you can have that chemistry develop.
Yeah, and traditionally Ray Shero is a fan of making moves. The Penguins do have a couple of trading assets they might be able to bring somebody in, but somebody that might be able to get the job done is Bo Bennett. He's been kind of on the shelf most of the year with an injury. Maybe if he can come back, you throw him with the best player in the world, it would definitely be a chance for him to flourish, so to speak. But speaking of the Penguins, they have a stranglehold of the Metropolitan Division right now, 74 points, but the 2nd through 7th place teams are separated by just 5 points. Outside of the Penguins, who do you think will make the playoffs in that division, and do you think there'll be a wild card also?
Interesting point. As far as the wild card goes, I don't believe that a wild card team is going to end up coming out of the Metropolitan Division. The Atlantic Division has a stronger top of the table. In the Metropolitan Division, I see the Rangers holding on to end up making the playoffs, and I also have the Columbus Blue Jackets. Carolina currently holds that third spot as if the playoffs were to begin today, but their schedule is looking extremely strong for these next 30 games that they have. I think they're playing 25 teams above 500 out of those 30 games, so it's going to be a rough road for them. And Columbus currently, they won 8 of their past 10, and they're looking like a team that has been building a lot of chemistry throughout the year, and I think their goaltending is strong, and they will end up making the playoffs.
I agree with what you said about a wild card is not going to come out of the Metropolitan Division because the West is dominating the East right now, and it would be a very slim chance for that to happen. If there were to be a wild card from the Metropolitan, I'd say possibly Rangers, and for my 2, I would say the Flyers and Capitals have a possible good chance of making it. I just think that the Flyers show that when they're down and really down with points and everything, they can come back if they really show their drive and want it enough. And with Ovechkin, anything could happen for the Capitals. So.
And also the way the standings were shaping up earlier this week, the way it would have been in the first round was the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Philadelphia Flyers squaring off in the first round of the playoffs. So definitely nothing better than that. Some Flyers, Penguins hockey.
I love the storyline.
Oh, absolutely. Good stuff. Good plot line there. But let's look at a former Penguin as well, and that is Jaromir Jagr, because on Sunday he passed Mario Lemieux, all-time Penguin great, on the all-time assist list and also on the all-time points list. He's played a lot more games than Mario Lemieux, but my question is, who is truly the greatest Penguin in the eyes of history?
Now, there's a lot of debate with this question. I am a huge Mario Lemieux believer. I think that he is up there with Wayne Gretzky for one of the top 2 players in the history of the game. He's a one-club player, and when comparing his stats with Jagr's stats, he averages 1.88 points per game, which is significantly higher than Jagr's 1.2 points per game. Jagr's been in the game since I was like 2 years old, I think. So the amount of time that he's had and the amount of games that he had skewed the stats a little bit, in my opinion. Lemieux's a legend, and I'm gonna go with Lemieux for that.
I definitely have to go with Lemieux too. I'd like to say that it's quite an accomplishment to even be compared to Lemieux, so good for Jagr for that, and I think that's awesome that he did surpass his points. But at the same time, Jagr is 42 right now, and Mario had a lot of complications. He had to retire when he was 31. He came back when he was 35 till he was 40. And the 2 played a total of 7 seasons together, and within those 7 seasons, Jagr outscored Lemieux by 15 goals and 7 assists. And that is something to show for it, but at the same time, Mario is a better per-game player, and Jagr is a better consistent and durable player, obviously, because he hasn't had the same complications as Lemieux. But overall, I think Lemieux is a much better leader, if Jagr even can be considered a leader. But I would have to go with Mario for this one.
Yeah, not to mention Jagr. I mean, he has been traded away from the Penguins, which wasn't exactly their fault. Mm-hmm. But he has been playing for many of their other league rivals. Lemieux playing for just one team, I think, is a deciding factor.
Yeah, it shows a lot of consistency as far as teams go.
Also, the leadership. When you mentioned that, I think that's a strong point. Mm-hmm. Lemieux or Jagr, for that matter, he's not really a vocal guy. He doesn't really talk too much. And that's not something that makes him a legend, in my opinion. He will he'll make the Hall of Fame undoubtedly, and he'll go down as one of the best players in history of the game, but not quite as good as Mario Lemieux.
Yeah, certainly hard to compare Jaromir Jagr to Mario Lemieux, who is arguably one of the greatest players, or at least top 2 greatest players of all time. And a shout out to our graphics crew for putting the old-time Penguins logo up there. Nice job, Ben and Danielle. That was very clever. But moving on to something a little more current, and that's the NHL Stadium Series. There's a myriad of outdoor games going on, replicating the Winter and Heritage Classic. You have games played even in Los Angeles between the Ducks and the Kings, in New York between the Rangers and Devils, and the Rangers and Islanders. And coming up soon, a game in Chicago between the Chicago Blackhawks and the Pittsburgh Penguins, potential Stanley Cup matchup there. But there have been some differing opinions on these outdoor games. Do you think that the NHL is doing the right thing with the outdoor games, or are they taking away the charm and the spectacle that is the Winter Classic and the Heritage Classic?
I personally find it to be a sensitive issue. I personally really enjoy what they're doing with the Stadium Series. I think it brings a lot of popularity to NHL, something that the NHL desperately needs after years of controversial lockouts and things of that sort. The Winter Classic is obviously a great thing. They brought that into the game about 3 years ago. I'm afraid that the NHL is pushing it too far. The Stadium Series, this could be something that spans into a lot more games instead of just the 4 or 5 that we have this year. But it has proven successful. They played a game in 77-degree weather in California, I believe, and the game seemed to go fine. I like the attention it brings to the NHL, and I like it overall.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like the attention it brings to the NHL. I understand why people would think it's overkill, but I think it's just a great way to bring back the NHL to its roots, hockey to its roots of pond hockey. And I think that no matter what, fans are going to pay for that. It's going to be a hit, and it does bring a lot of attention to the NHL, and that's great for them. I mean, Kiss performed at the Dodger Stadium on the last Stadium Series game that was played, and that was a huge hit. That was a big deal, and I think it's great what they're doing. I don't think it's overkill at all because the Winter Classic is always going to be a charm. It's an annual event. Everyone's going to still love it. It's not going to take away from it. I think that they're all going to succeed.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a way to reach out to the more casual hockey fan. It's something that people will be interested in for years to come. But coming up next, you're not going to want to miss this, the NFL Super Bowl special. Dimitri George, Cody Benjamin, and Eric Kormos will give you everything you need to know about the big game. Stay tuned.
Today I'm going to talk about Patty. Patty's best characteristics, she's stupid and ugly. Everything she does is ugly. Watch her eat. Watch her stuff her face. Look at her, greasy hair, dirty fingernails. It makes me want to vomit. Get a life, Patty. Thank you.
And welcome back into the Big Hit. It is time for the moment that everyone's really been waiting for, a lot of anticipation here amongst the set. It's the Super Bowl special. Joining me for this segment from left to right, Eric Kormos, Cody Benjamin, and Dimitri George. Gentlemen, let's start by looking at how both teams got here more recently in the last couple of weeks. Starting with the AFC Championship, the New England Patriots fell to the Denver Broncos at Mile High, 26-16. No turnovers in that game, but the Broncos were able to control it from the start. How was Denver able to dominate this contest?
Well, they went into that football game with a plan to control possession, control the clock, and they did that. They had 36 minutes of possession compared to 24 for New England. They had 2 drives, an 80-yard drive and a 93-yard drive that were over 7 minutes long. So they took the ball out of Tom Brady's hands and didn't give him many opportunities. And unfortunately for the Patriots, when Brady did have his opportunities, he missed. He missed a couple big open throws that really could have changed momentum. And then Denver built that big lead, and that was it.
Yeah, I agree. I think when you said how they controlled the game, that's exactly what they did. They controlled the clock, and whenever you keep Tom Brady off the field, that's a plus. And we know that that's the case for both Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, both great quarterbacks. When they have the ball, I think Peyton Manning did a great job just managing that game and giving them opportunities, long opportunities to sustain drives and just keep Brady off the field and the Patriots out of contention.
Yeah, for me, I thought it was a no-brainer. I thought that the Denver Broncos were clearly the better team than the New England Patriots. I know that they met, in the regular season, and New England had that crazy comeback. However, Gronk was in that game. I just never really felt that New England was that good of a team. But again, I think you made up a good point. Denver's offense has actually kind of evolved as the season has gone on. Early in the season, they usually, 5 plays and they're scoring like that. It's real quick. Now they're sustaining drives, 10-play drives, 11-play drives, really chewing up that clock. Because I think their defense, while it is solid, I think it could be exposed a little bit, given that they're on the field a little too much. But with Denver's offense evolving, kind of taking up more possession, I think that really helps their defense. And obviously, when you have Peyton Manning at the helm, you're able to do multiple things, and I think they showed that on this past Sunday. Yeah,
when you look at it, Denver dominated the time of possession too. They had just under 36 minutes of time of possession. New England just under 25, and they outgained them 507 to 320 in terms of yardage. But A lot was made going into this about Peyton Manning versus Tom Brady. I refuse to call it Manning-Brady 5
Aren't you sick
or
of that?
whatever. Yeah, but I think for debate purposes, because there is a lot of controversy surrounding this topic, who would you consider to be the better quarterback, Tom Brady or Peyton Manning?
Right now, it comes down to wins, right, in the NFL championship. So I would go with Peyton Manning of the Denver Broncos. And the reason is simply this. He has better weapons around him, guys. You look against Demaryius Thomas, Eric Decker, Wes Welker, Julius Thomas, the tight end as well. Better weapons, Peyton Manning.
Yeah, I mean, history, you can look at Tom Brady's championships, but I go with Peyton Manning as well. And I think the biggest thing is look at his age, and just a few seasons ago, people were wondering, is he even going to play anymore? And this year was the best year he's ever had. So I think that's a pretty clear indication that right now it's Peyton Manning.
I mean, obviously we're victims of the moment. Peyton Manning's in the Super Bowl. He just beat Tom Brady to get to the Super Bowl. But I think overall, I think you got to go with Tom Brady. I think the fact I know that I said that the New England Patriots weren't as good a team as I think that many people thought they were. But you have to give respect to Tom Brady. What he did with less. Some people say that he should be considered the MVP of this league. I know Peyton Manning put like video game type numbers. But again, Tom Brady, with what he was working with, I think it speaks volumes of him as well as Bill Belichick. And I think, definitely right now, Peyton Manning looks, has he just beat him? I think you would say that. But I think overall, and I'll even go back to early in the decade, back in the early 2000s when Brady was dominating Peyton Manning every time they met. So to me, they're both great, and you both would love to have either one of them. But I think Tom Brady is the better one.
Yeah, exactly what I was talking about. A lot of controversy. It looks like we have a clean split. I'm also with Tom Brady. I think he is the second best quarterback of all time. Peyton Manning also in that top 5.
Who's your number one?
I'm going with Joe Montana, greatest quarterback of all time.
Real quick.
Okay.
Joe Montana is 4-0 in Super Bowls. And I might get Eric a little worked up here.
Here we go.
Terry Bradshaw was 4-0 in Super Bowls. Now, it may never have been pretty, but 4-0 in the Super Bowl is
4-0. Exactly.
He was efficient. He
Yes.
did what he needed to do. He didn't turn the ball over much. They had the defense. He knew that. He did what he needed to do.
Just Joe Montana. I mean, is Terry Bradshaw on Joe Montana's level? Absolutely not.
Absolutely not,
But he's still 4-0 in the Super Bowl. And I know Terry Bradshaw gets more hype for his crazy remarks and how But again, to me, it just boggles my mind. He doesn't get the respect that he deserves.
I feel like besides those top couple quarterbacks that are the best, it's going to be an argument that goes on forever because so many of these quarterbacks are in different situations. Even this year, like you said, Tom Brady had less to work with. We're going to look at these quarterbacks for years, and I don't think we'll ever be able to truly rank them.
Yeah, it's with the different eras and the quarterbacks. There's a lot of debate on the position, but both quarterbacks definitely tremendous. But Tom Brady has struggled in the postseason of late. He falls short once again. Do you think his postseason magic has come to an end?
Well, you can make the argument, certainly. You look at what they've done. They won 11 AFC East championships in the last 13 years. They made it to the last two Super Bowl appearances were losses. And they haven't been back there for a couple seasons now. So Tom Brady's 36, but by the time the next season rolls around, he's going to be 37 years old. His window of opportunity is closing very rapidly. So maybe 1 to 2 years tops.
Right.
And when you look at that, we talked about earlier, the weapons and things of that nature around him, he's still got the magic to work it for himself, I believe. But the problem is the surrounding cast going to allow him to use his magic, so to speak, and get them to another Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think, the history, the resume is there. He has the championships, but, I think we were talking a little bit before the show. It's really interesting to see all these great quarterbacks now. They really are up there in age. So I think if I'm going to the postseason, there's no doubt I'm taking Tom Brady. I trust him to take me to a championship. But the question is there enough time for him to do that in the remainder of his career?
Yeah, to me, I think Tom Brady. I hate to bring it up again, but since Spygate, you gotta look at it. He hasn't won anything since Spygate. I understand they got punished, they paid their dues, but to me, Tom Brady, even when he got the Super Bowl in 2011, he struggled that year, and I think and they got out by a fluke. Billy Cundiff of the Ravens missed a chip shot of a field goal that would have tied that AFC Championship game, and who knows what would have happened.
Right.
And to me, Tom Brady, you can say how great he was. I just made the argument I said I'll take him over Peyton Manning, but if you get pressure on him, ever since that knee injury, you get pressure on him, especially up the middle. He kind of tap dances in the pocket, rushes some throws. Like you said, he missed some throws in the AFC Championship game. that definitely cost his team. So Tom Brady's magic has definitely come to an end. I'm not saying that he won't ever get back to the Super Bowl. I just don't think he is ever going to be what he was before the Spygate, and even after getting to the Super Bowl in 2011. I just think it's over.
Would you agree that maybe, taking that point, that Tom Brady and Peyton Manning are kind of taking different directions right now? Because, Peyton just had his best season statistically, and if he wins the Super Bowl, obviously that's the highlight of his career. And
to me, it's never been about what Peyton Manning does in the regular season. It's always about what he does in the playoffs. And again, the Peyton Manning, Tom Brady met many times in the playoffs, and Tom Brady and those teams beat him. And you can say that Tom Brady, really didn't have an integral part in those teams. They had a great defense: Teddy Bruschi, Willie McGinnis, Richard Seymour, guys like that, Ty Law. The list goes on and on. And that was really what got to Peyton Manning. It wasn't really Tom Brady. They had Corey Dillon, so to me, Peyton Manning's never been about the regular season. We know what he's going to do. How many times has he, have we heard about the Colts or resting their stars in the last 3 weeks because they've already locked up the #1 seed and all that? So to me, Peyton Manning has never been about that. It's always about what he does in the playoffs.
Yeah, certainly. And the Denver Broncos beating the New England Patriots 26-16, representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. Representing the NFC, it's the Seattle Seahawks. They were able to knock off the San Francisco 49ers 23-17. San Francisco had 3 turnovers compared to Seattle's 1. The Seattle defense did force that big turnover late. Sherman with the tip, Maxwell with the interception. How good would you consider the Seahawks defense to be?
Well, it's legit. I mean, it's the best in the league. I think that there's really not much debate in that right now. Look at what they've done. They've only allowed one first possession of the whole season to give up points. That was last week after that Russell Wilson fumble. So also, that's great game planning when you think about it. To go an entire NFL season, 16 games, plus 2 playoff games, and 18 chances, one team has scored on them in the first possession. That means they're prepared, and they have the athletes and the playmakers to carry out the game plan as they go in.
Yeah, and I think, as you said, that stat right there, that kind of shows that this defense is good enough that even when the offense stumbles, you can rely on them to win the game. And I think, as we all have heard the Richard Sherman, fiasco, if you want to call it that, depending on what side you want to look at. But I think his statement that he's the best cornerback in the game, you can kind of correlate that to, they have confidence and they know how to make plays. And I know the defense as a whole might not be as, if you want to call Richard Sherman arrogant as he portrayed, but I think he really represented the confidence that they have and the ability to make plays that they have, which is good enough to win games even when the offense is stumbling.
Yeah, to me, the Seahawks defense is phenomenal. It's fantastic. I love watching them play. They make plays. The secondary is going to get all the headlines. You got the Shermans, the Cam Chancellors, Earl Thomas, and that. Don't get me wrong, the secondary is phenomenal, but that front seven is very underrated. They have 7 or 8 guys that they rotate in and out of the defensive line that can rush the passer. They got guys like Cliff Averill and Michael Bennett for cheap. Free agent signings that no one really mentioned, and it's paying off. Michael Bennett again with a fumble recovery last week. Even the linebackers, KJ Wright, Bruce Irvin coming in and out, Wagner. Their entire defense from the front 7 to the back 4. It's phenomenal, and to me, we're going to get into it in a little bit. I'm really interested to see what's going to go on in the Super Bowl with that matchup with the #1 ranked offense.
Yeah, I think a lot of times too, the front 7 is responsible for success of the secondary because obviously with that pass rush, that's allowing Richard Sherman and the secondary to make plays. So it's just a unit as a whole. They're very good.
You know what's interesting? Last week they played Kaepernick. And what's he do? He likes to get out of the pocket. Right. He likes to run. So he had 30 pass attempts. On not one of those pass attempts did they rush more than 4 guys. So what does that tell you about the confidence that they have in their secondary? Also, but think about what that says about their defensive line, that they believe that they have enough pressure-making ability on the defensive line that they only need to rush 4 guys. Now, granted, Kaepernick's going to move around, so maybe they had a guy kind of drop back, play a spy coverage type. But think about that. They didn't rush they did not blitz Colin Kaepernick one time in that football game.
Yeah, absolutely tremendous, the Seattle defense is. But looking at the other side of things, the San Francisco 49ers, they've been to 3 straight conference championships. They've, of course, only made it to the 1 Super Bowl last year against the Baltimore Ravens. This team is obviously still considered elite in the AFC and the NFL also. But if you had to change one aspect of the 49ers, what would you go with?
I would go with they need another playmaker. They need a guy besides Colin Kaepernick, somebody at a skill position, wide receiver or running back that can make a big play. Now, Frank Gore, he's 30 years old right now. That's kind of that barrier for running backs. They start to go downhill from there. Teams get very weary of giving those guys contracts. Look at Kendall Hunter. He's a capable backup, not a big play guy. Crabtree, the wide receiver, he's a nice wide receiver, but again, he's not going to break off 75, 80-yard touchdown catches. And Bolden's a stud, but he's more of a possession guy, go up, fight, and get the ball. They need looking for somebody in the lines of a Brandon Marshall, somebody along the lines of a Josh Gordon, somebody who can pair up with Kaepernick on the outside, and because Kaepernick's got a gun. And if he can get around and make plays in the pocket and get rid of that football 50, 60 yards downfield to a big play wide receiver, I think that's the step that they need, because defensively they're solid. But they need that one playmaker to get them over the top. We saw in that game that first possession of the football game, what happens? Russell Wilson fumbles. San Francisco gets the football at the 12-yard line. They can't score a touchdown. They got to settle for a field goal. That kind of set the tone. If they're able to punch it in right there at the big play, that changes the whole complex of that game as you move forward.
Yeah, I think they could use some depth in the secondary, but I agree. I think Frank Gore, I think he had more carries this year than he had ever in his career despite that age. But Mario Manningham and Anquan Bolden, I believe, are the only receivers to have a touchdown catch this season for the 49ers. So obviously that would give Kaepernick somebody else to trust when you come in those situations, you know, because he does have a gun, and for him to be able to just throw it up and trust somebody, that'd be a big piece for the 49ers.
Yeah, I agree with Cody. I know Dante Whitner is an pending free agent, so they might want to look up. I know they have a fine young safety in Eric Reed, their first-round pick from this past draft. But again, I'm going to agree with you guys. Definitely a playmaker. And I think the running back position is the one position I would look at. I understand wide receiver. You know, maybe they try to lock up Anquan Bolden, but maybe a 3-year deal. He's up there in age. But you know, maybe a guy like Marcus Lattimore that they drafted in the 4th round. If he comes back healthy, we don't know with his knees. He had a bunch of devastating knee injuries at South Carolina. Maybe he's the guy that they're leaning towards. We don't know. I don't know what to expect from him. It's something to look forward to next year, as he didn't play at all this year. But to me, it's got to be a playmaker on offense. But let's be honest, guys. I expect them to be right back in the same position they were this past season next year.
And we were just kind of talking about the Seattle defense and how good that is. Obviously, just think how good an offensive playmaker would be for the 49ers, obviously in the same division. A big upgrade for them in that matchup.
It's crazy on their defense. You know, honestly, if Aldon Smith didn't have his off-the-field issues, they would have had all four of their linebackers in the Pro Bowl. And to me, if you and a guy like DeMauro Bowman, Patrick Willis, they get the headlines. Ahmad Brooks is a very underrated outside linebacker. He can play the run. He can rush the passer. They're just phenomenal on defense. And like I said, you know, they're still going to be around for quite some time. They have a nice young nucleus.
Absolutely. Not many holes, a couple holes that San Francisco would like to fill. But as we talked before this, they have that quarterback that is kind of that new era of quarterback, that wave into the future. They have that guy already in Colin Kaepernick, a good coaching staff, tremendous defense of San Francisco, certainly will be in it for the next couple years for sure. But we're going to take a quick break. Coming up, we will actually get into Super Bowl 48. We're going to give you everything you need to know. Offense, defense, special teams, who has the edge, our X factors, and finally the predictions. Stay tuned right here on The Big Hit.
It's gonna get louder.
And welcome back into The Big Hit Super Bowl special. Quick recap. We were here before the break, but Eric Kormos, Cody Benjamin, Dimitri George. Guys, let's finally get into it. Super Bowl 48 from MetLife Stadium in New York, New Jersey area. I don't really know which one you want to go with, but let's just get right into it. Who were your X factors for this game?
Well, I'm going to look at Trindon Holiday for the Denver Broncos, their kick returner. Since joining the Broncos in the beginning of the 2012 season, including the postseason, he's had 6 special teams touchdowns, 3 kickoff returns, 3 punt returns. I'm not saying he has to score a touchdown necessarily, but if he can get the Broncos in good field position, get a couple big kickoff or punt returns that sets them up at midfield or even in Seattle territory, that's going to really help them out. Shorten the field, even if just a field goal or a touchdown, because any points that you get against that Seahawks defense, they could be large in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, somebody I'm looking at is Percy Harvin, somebody that obviously hasn't played a lot this year, but with the Seahawks offense, we know that they're dangerous already. and to throw him in there could be a big upgrade for them. And also, Noshawn Moreno for the Broncos. I think he's kind of helped them become more of a multi-dimensional offense. So I think that could be key for them sustaining drives as well.
Yeah, just to piggyback your Percy Harvin, because I also think he's an X factor. He could be, if he could just stay healthy, they can use him in so many different ways, whether it's in the screen game, the bubble screen. They can run the ball with him, put him in the backfield. He opens up that entire offense. But for me, for the Seattle Seahawks, I will go with Earl Thomas. The Seahawks, they get a lot of that notoriety for that man-to-man coverage. They like to play that single high safety. They like to leave Earl Thomas out there in the middle of the field. And he's got to play hash to hash, sideline to sideline. He's got to make plays. Peyton Manning's obviously going to win. It's going to be a chess match. Obviously Earl Thomas is a playmaker, and he can go from hash to sideline. He can make those plays. Peyton Manning's definitely going to try to attack him. And I think Earl Thomas is up for the challenge, but that's something you definitely want to watch. And for the Denver Broncos, I think it's Terrence Knighton, a.k.a. Pot Roast. They called him Pot Roast in Jacksonville. He came over with Jack Del Rio, from Jacksonville. To me, he's got to anchor that run defense. He's got to slow down the beast mode in Marshawn Lynch. And I think he's got to play a big role for them this Sunday.
Yeah. You guys have given players, I'm the host of the show, so I'm going to go a bit of a different route. I'm going to say the weather conditions are going to be the X factor here in Super Bowl 48.
Look at you, Josh,
really?
giving some predictions here.
Yeah, that's right. Here we go. Let's compare these two teams now. Obviously, it's a matchup of the best offense and the best defense, unstoppable force versus the immovable object kind of thing. But who has the edge on the offensive side of the football?
I think we're going to be in unanimous agreement here that it's going to be the Denver Broncos. You look at what they did. They led the NFL in points. Peyton Manning led the league in touchdowns, in yardage. I don't think there's any way around it. Offensively, it's got to be the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, it's really kind of self-explanatory. Just look at all the weapons they have. Besides Moreno, who's kind of overlooked, Peyton Manning running the offense, it's going to be productive, reliable. Demaryius Thomas, Julius Thomas, and Wes Welker. There's just, clearly Denver.
Excuse me, it's Denver. I don't need to explain it. It's just Denver.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's going to be, I'm also on Denver. It's going to be very similar probably for the defense. Who has the edge on the defensive side of the ball?
Again, it's the same type of thing. It's a pretty obvious choice here. We're going to go with the Seattle Seahawks. They led the NFL in points allowed per game. They led the NFL in interceptions and the fewest yards allowed per play. And when you take those numbers into consideration, and then you look at what the Denver Broncos like to do on offense with the pass, look out for that situation there. And then look at the defensive ends. Pay attention to them. You were talking about them earlier, Michael Bennett and Cliff Averill. What kind of pressure can they put on Peyton Manning to disrupt him? Because, as you said, a lot of the Denver offense is rhythm-based. So if they can get to Manning, hit him, knock him down a few times, see how that changes.
Yeah, of course I have to agree with you. I think Seattle has the edge on defense. But I think it's interesting the way that the game is shaping up. Just having that top offense go against the top defense and fit in those kind of categories, like you said, their pass rush, their secondary against Denver's passing offense. So, but Seattle, yeah.
I'm going to go with Seattle too. And to me, when it comes down for this game, a lot has been talking about how Peyton Manning going to attack Richard Sherman in that secondary. I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to really get that running game going with Noshawn Moreno, Monte Ball, just to switch things up, keep the defense on and slap that play action. But to me, don't get me wrong, I think Seattle's very much aware and prepared for all the nuances that Peyton Manning brings. And I think that, obviously Seattle has the edge with defense.
Yeah, I'm also on Seattle. Their secondary is just incredible. Both teams have had a couple weeks to prepare for each other, so it'll be interesting to see how they attack each other with this great matchup. How about special teams? Who has the edge in the special teams department?
I'm going to go with the Denver Broncos. We talked about him earlier being the X factor in terms of special teams play. Look at Trindon Holiday, what he's done. 6 touchdowns on special teams returns since joining the Broncos. He led the NFL in 2012 in punt return yards. He's a big playmaker. Both teams, I think the kickers are a push, but I'm going to go with Holiday because of his big playmaking abilities at the returner spot.
Yeah, I think it's starting to sound like an echo. I'm going to go with Denver as well. I think obviously it is kind of a toss-up, kind of like the game, just because of how evenly matched they are. But I'm going to go with Denver, and because of Trindon Holiday and the explosiveness that he has.
I'm going to go with Seattle, and I'm going to go with Seattle simply because I don't know if Percy Harvin's going to return kicks. I doubt he will because, that's just another opportunity for him to get hurt, which he seems to not be able to stay healthy. But for me, it's Seattle. Hauschka is 33 of 35 this year. I know Prater. Prater's has a little bit of I think he's sick. I think he has a little bit of flu symptoms. They're monitoring him close this week, and he's not going to be kicking in, thin air up a mile high, hitting 64-yard field goals. The Meadowlands, MetLife, whatever they call it now. Very windy it can get, and I think Hauschka kicking up in Seattle is very prepared for it, and I think I'm going to give the edge to Seattle.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with Denver, obviously. Trenton Holiday's big time, but we're running out of time, so it's finally time to get your predictions, and of course, we have to get a score as well. So, Eric, let's start with you.
All right, I'm going to go Seattle Seahawks 23-20. The reason is because the last 4 times that the number 1 defense has faced the number 1 offense in the Super Bowl, the defense has won 3 of those times. So I'm just going to stick with history here, but I could see it going either way, but I'm going to say Seattle.
Yeah, it's such a toss-up. I know we were talking about how it's kind of a generation of these quarterbacks that are older. I'm going to say that generation wins this one with Peyton Manning, 28-24, the Broncos.
I have Seattle 24-23. I think Russell Wilson has a little magic in him, has a drive late, down, and they score a touchdown late to end up winning the game only by 1.
Yeah, this one is certainly a toss-up. I'm going to go with the Denver Broncos by a final score of 27-23. It's big time. And, of course, Super Bowl 48 on Fox, 6:25 Eastern, February 2nd. Certainly can't swallow your plans because that's the spectacle of America. But that's all the time we have here for the Super Bowl special. It was a great special with Eric Kormos, Cody Benjamin, and Dimitri George. Stay tuned, everybody, because coming up next, we crash the boards with the NBA segment. And welcome back into the only sports talk show that really matters right here on IUP-TV and YouTube. And it's time to crash the boards, our NBA segment. Joining us are our NBA analysts, some real knowledgeable basketball guys on the far left. It's Freddie Mitchell, and in the middle, Malusi Kitchen, the typical crew here with us to talk some National Basketball Association. And let's talk some Oklahoma City Thunder because they are sitting number 1 in this week's power rankings, followed by the Pacers, Heat, Spurs, and Clippers rounding out the top 5. Would you guys consider the Thunder to be the best team in the NBA as the power rankings suggest?
As of right now, I would not put them number 1, but that's to be told. There's still a lot of season left to play. Right now, I have the Heat at number 1 just because they are the defending champs, and they beat the Pacers, they beat the Spurs this season. So as of right now, I don't think you could say that the Thunder right now are better than what the Heat's team is as a team. They're not better.
Oh, okay. Well, you're wrong.
Okay.
So the Thunder
Thanks.
are the best team in the league because without Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant has been taking it to another level. His aggression is better. He's finishing games. He's definitely carrying the team on his back without Russell Westbrook. And you think about what he was before. In the playoffs, he couldn't get it done. He wasn't aggressive enough. A little bit too passive. But with him, with Russell Westbrook out, he's finally starting to mature and come into his own as a player. Being more aggressive. He's starting to get some of the calls his way. So they're definitely the best team in the league, and the Heat aren't because without Dwayne Wade, they're pretty subpar because they're asking LeBron to do a lot.
And come May and June, Kevin Durant will be playing with Russell. Oh my God, with Westbrook again. Do you think he's gonna be able to put up the same numbers when he's shooting?
No, obviously his numbers are going to go down, but I'm just saying.
Do you think it's going to affect him though when he comes?
Well, obviously his numbers. The number shows that it goes down after Westbrook comes back, but the two of them together are unstoppable.
And what about when Dwayne comes back on the floor come June for playoff
That's
time?
if he's healthy.
He's going to be healthy, and you know he's going to come to ball.
Well, that's remaining to be seen. That's remaining to be seen. He's not healthy right now, and he hasn't been healthy, and this knee issue is starting to become a problem for the Heat because they're asking LeBron to do a lot more than he needs. He feels like he's in Cleveland.
He does.
Because the supporting cast he has is not good enough right now. So.
Yeah, well, one thing that is for sure is Malusi certainly read the script because we're going to be talking about Kevin Durant right now because he's certainly been going off as of late. He's been nothing short of a superstar. He put up 54 points last week and is now averaging 31 points per game. Is there anybody in the NBA that you would say deserves the MVP more than Kevin Durant?
Absolutely not. There's no one out there right now in the NBA that is doing more for his team than what Kevin Durant is doing. He is single-handedly winning games for his team. Right now, he has 11 games consecutive with, 30 points a game. You can see the numbers right there on the screen right now. 38.3 points per game in the last 10. He also just tied a record with Michael Jordan for consecutive games with 30 points per game. There's no person out there that's more beneficial to their team than Kevin Durant. I think without Kevin, they'd be sub 500.
Absolutely, especially with Russell Westbrook being out. He is definitely the catalyst for that team, the energy, the rock. He's definitely showing why. I think it was last year he was like, I want to be the best player. I want to win MVP. So he's definitely proving why he should do that. I mean, 6 40-point games. I mean, he's playing at another level right now. But he's definitely the front runner for the MVP. I don't even see LeBron being able to.
No, I figured to LeBron, it's rigged. But you're right. Kevin Durant did say, I've always been number 2. I never won a state title in high school. I never won a title in college. He wants to. He's ready. I think he's finally taken that step to be a champion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and with Kevin Durant's performance, there were a few more performances that you may have missed the past week in the NBA. On Friday, Carmelo Anthony showed why he won that scoring title, putting up 62 points against the Bobcats. And that same night, Chandler Parsons put 34 points up in the second half, including 10 threes against the Memphis Grizzlies. Which of these two showings was really the most impressive of the two performances?
Well, I think both two performances were absolutely amazing, phenomenal performances by both players. Good job, Melo, putting up the extra points there, getting the record at Madison Square Garden. That's a great achievement. But I'm going to give the nod to Parsons. I think the fact that he hit 10 threes in a row, that's very rare. Melo just put up points. I know, you could argue that, it's, whatever. But I think the rarity of making 10 threes in a row, that's unheard of. We never really see that in the NBA. I'm going to give him just by a smidge.
I can't believe this. Oh my gosh. I can't even believe I have to debate this with you. Carmelo is the more impressive win. He put up 62 points. Now, we knew Carmelo could score, but 62 points. Let me say it again.
10 threes in a row.
62 points.
10 threes in a row.
Points. Carmelo put up 62 in Madison Square Garden. He usually puts it you expect Carmelo to put up 40, maybe 45.
Yeah, so he made 10 extra shots.
He put up 62 points. I don't know how to say that. Chandler Parsons, he can score about 25 to 30 on a good night.
And he hit 10 threes in a row in the second half.
Okay, well, Carmelo, no, I have to give it to Carmelo.
There's some clutch factor there, man. You're building a streak of not missing a basket.
Well, granted,
from 3-point land.
Granted, Carmelo is he's on a lesser team with less stars, so he have James Harden, Dwight Howard, so you'd expect that type of stuff from Chandler Parsons. Him, James Harden, they're the focal point of that team. Carmelo has to do it night in and night out, and that night he decided, I'm going to put up 62 points.
They're both amazing. I just like the fact that he had 10 threes in a row. I think it's a little more impressive.
62 points, Madison Square Garden,
yeah,
best basketball arena in the world.
He scores 50 points almost every game.
No, he doesn't. He scores 40, about 35.
Whatever. He still scores all his points every game.
That's ridiculous.
I think it's just cool that someone else was able to put a strand together, 10 consecutive threes without missing.
Both. They were
both
certainly very impressive performances. Malusi, Carmelo's performance is similar to you Fridays in basketball. I mean, you just you do what you have to do. You tear it up. But that's all the time we have here, unfortunately, for the Crashing the Boards segment for Freddie Mitchell and Malusi Kitchen. Stay tuned because coming up next, we break down the big weekend in the IUP Crimson Hawks basketball teams as they battled Slippery Rock in the Crimson Huddle. Stay tuned.
We're Steelers fans. I'm a Steelers fan. And we're Steelers fans. We're good sports. I'm a good sport.
I'm a good sport.
We always have
a designated
driver. Steelers fans don't let fans drive drunk. Responsibility has its rewards. Responsibility has its rewards.
Go!
Go Steelers! Go Steelers! Go Steelers! Go Steelers!
And welcome back into the Big Hit. It's time to talk some Crimson Hawks hoops here in the Crimson Huddle. Joining me for that, it's our Crimson Hawks athletics insiders from the radio side. On the far left, it's the sports director of WIUP-FM and women's basketball play-by-play man, Mike Gosnell. And in the middle, the men's basketball play-by-play man, Dan Wallace. And guys, a big weekend at the KCAC for the IUP Crimson Hawks basketball teams. They battled the Slippery Rock Pride in a doubleheader matchup. A clean sweep for the Crimson Hawks. Goose, why don't you mind recapping the women's game for us real quick?
No, it's about time they get off the Schneid 5-game winless streak snapped against a really subpar Slippery Rock team. They just had their way with them, is virtually what happened. A big part of that is Leslie Stapleton, 22 points, very efficient from beyond the arc. Ashley Stoner had a very good game, breaking out of her half-court offense style, adapting to the Tom McConnell system of fast break. Marita Matthey, ever since she came back from a foot injury, she's been very good. And they did all this without Lindsay Stamp, who, a bit of an update, breaking news, she's off crutches now and is taking it week by week. So she should be returning to the lineup any game now. But it was just an all-around efficient effort. There was no real glaring mistakes as there has been against, Edinburgh and Cal and Bloomsburg. But they righted the ship, but we'll see what happens Wednesday in Pitt Johnstown.
Absolutely, you mentioned it. Lindsay Stamp not in the lineup. IUP did snap a 5-game losing streak, now in 6th place in the PSAC West. But no Lindsay Stamp. She should be back any time now, but really no timetable for her return. How are the women going to fare in their upcoming games without their true leader, Lindsay Stamp?
It's going to take a lot of what happened against Slippery Rock going forward. Specifically, Leslie Stapleton and Ashley Stoner need to step up their game. They have been doing that. They did that against Slippery Rock, but I think it's going to take a deeper bench than McConnell's maybe used to doing. I think he's going to maybe bring a Jessica Wallace off the bench, give Melanie Todd more playing time. She actually was in the starting lineup against Slippery Rock, and that proved to be one of the smartest decisions I think Tom McConnell's made in this season. But I think it's going to take a complete effort from everybody. Everybody needs to give 110%. Even the coaches need to give 110%. They need to believe in the McConnell system, believe in one another. The wins will come if they do all those things, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And Mike, you and I talked about this a little bit off camera, when we've talked about this quite a few times leading up to this. This team has played such as a team of individuals. They haven't really had an identity coming in to this game in Slippery Rock. They haven't had much of an identity all year. So you hate to see anybody go down with an injury, but for this team in particular, this injury to Lindsay Stamp might be a little bit of a blessing in disguise, because when Lindsay Stamp was in the ballgame, it's simply give her the ball, let her take over, let her score all the points. She's averaging almost 20 points a game by doing that, and nobody else really is even close to, or 2 people are in double figures. Stoner is, and so is Matthew whenever she's in the game. But outside of that, nobody else is averaging in double figures. Nobody else is really showing up. So in terms of who's going to have to really show up for this team now, it's going to be Stapleton, like you said, and who had a phenomenal game against Slippery Rock. She had 5 threes, I believe. She had 22 points. She really showed up. But this team, I think, is really going to have to come together, and it's going to have to be more of a cohesive unit without Stamp in there. And that might get them out of the normality that most of these players were playing for each other, or for themselves, and not really for each other, and now they really have to play for each other.
Another player I think besides Stapleton is Marina Wareham, who's going to be here when Matthew graduates, but I think she endeared herself into Tom McConnell's heart as of late. She's had really good practices. She's been battling hard in games. Hit a magnificent 3, a bank shot, earlier in the contest against Slippery Rock. And another player, I think Alexis Aikens, really has stepped up her game. Didn't really see a lot of playing time last year. I think she's a perfect player for Tom McConnell's fast break system. Those are 2 players I think, along with Stapleton, who's probably going to get the most, accomplishments, maybe the most looks, because she's a pure shooter. She can give you points in bunches. But I think Wareham and Aiken are really going to be players that Tom McConnell looks to say, hey, we need production. Get out there and do it.
Well, to take it to the men's side, Marina Wareham, to me, is the women's Devontae Chance. She's the same type of player. She's just
good comparison. Very good comparison.
She's scrappy. She's one of the most, for the opposing team, the most annoying player on the court. You don't want her anywhere near you. She's a absolute defensive presence, and she comes away with probably close to 5 steals a game whenever she's in the game. So she's just an absolute nuisance for anybody on that side, and it's hard to play against a player like that. You can't really get anything going out in transition, and she's just constantly in your face.
Absolutely, and with the loss of Stamp, you mentioned it, Goose, this team has to really come together and play as a team. They were able to do that against a Slippery Rock team that is not one of the best teams in the PSAC West by any stretch of the imagination. 4 wins on the year, but 19 assists for the Crimson Hawks, and that was a good sign for IUP. But let's take it over to the men's side. It was really the main course of this doubleheader. A whiteout for the IUP Crimson Hawks, and what a game it was. Dan, why don't you go ahead and recap that game for us?
Well, everybody knew coming into this game that you're getting the top 2 teams out of the PSAC West playing each other. The 2 teams that matched up last year in the PSAC final here on IUP's campus. And this game didn't disappoint. It met all the headlines that it was expected to. I mean, the KCAC was absolutely raucous. The fans were into it. I would go out on a limb as much to say that this was the best crowd for a regular season game that I have ever seen at the KCAC, and I mean, it came down absolutely to the last second, but for Matisse Keita to get a layup in the with 2.3 seconds left to really seal the game for them to win 66-64. On that one, Chance got trapped down along the baseline by two Slippery Rock players, and Slippery Rock just got caught stagnant. They got caught with two guys on the ball and nobody really defending the cut toward the basket. They had three other defenders that were stuck out around the perimeter, and it left Keita with a wide open lane to get to the basket. But, I mean, the real star of this game, yeah, Keita had the game-winning bucket. Yeah, you're going to look at him as the hero. But Marcel Suburbia had 20 points in this game. He was fantastic, knocking it down from the outside. He had to deal a lot with Slippery Rock's best player in Maurice Lewis-Briggs, who, let's give him a little bit of credit, too. 29 points,
absolutely.
12 boards, a double-double that night. He was fantastic.
Transfer from Moorhead State.
Exactly. I mean, he's coming from a decent-sized Division I program, so you know he's a good player. But Suburbiel showed up as well that night. He was really the catalyst for this team. He's now 10 points away from 1,000 for his career here at IUP. And outside of that, Devontae Chance did what he does every game.
Yeah.
He gets in your face. He's a nuisance. He's annoying. He's going to come away with close to 4 or 5 steals a game. And he, surprisingly to me and surprisingly to a lot of people, for a kid that's 5'10", is the third leading rebounder on this team with 4.5 a game.
Oh, he's a scrapper.
You
that's
never
for sure.
expect that, but I won't say it's the best game that IUP's played all year. I will say it's the best game they played in the circumstances all year. That they showed up as an entire team. We talked about this right before we went on camera. There were 12 ties in this ball game, 8 lead changes, so it was really back and forth the entire time. It's going to be interesting to see what happens between these two teams when they have to play in the final regular season game of the year in Slippery Rock,
Yes.
which could be for a PSAC West title.
Certainly mark your calendars. The rematch lived up to all the hype. 66-64, the Crimson Hawks took it. President Driscoll down there with the students. A lot of fun, but this team is certainly a lot different from last year's team. You mentioned Marcel Suburbiel and Matisse Keita really are the catalyst of this team. Who is the driving force of the IUP men's basketball team, though?
Well, in my opinion, I think heart and soul is Devontae Chance. I think the offense really is facilitated by him. But it's a tough question to answer because you really can't really name any specific player. But if I had to, I think this is not taken away from Matisse or Marcel, but I think heart and soul wise, I put Devontae Chance up there.
Yeah, you have to have those senior leaders, and Marcel and Matisse are two guys who have been through it before, who have been around for a while. Marcel's been on this team since he was a freshman. He's gone through all the ups and downs that this team has gone through. Granted, they've been through a lot more ups in recent years than they have downs. Matisse, a transfer from Gonzaga last year, won the PSAC title here with this team and was the leading scorer on that team last year. Matisse has struggled at times a little bit this year with the incorporation of some new players like Brandon Norfleet. But I'm right there with you, Mike. It's Devontae Chance all the way. This is a kid that there's something about him. He brings such an energy to the court. If I want to make a comparison, and don't get me wrong, I can't stand this guy as an athlete, but he brings a lot to this team as to what Ray Lewis brought to the Ravens. As he's always the guy there. He's always the guy that is getting his team energized. He's always the guy that has something good to say to his teammates. You never see him out there yelling at any of his teammates. He's always giving them encouragement, and he is absolutely, he's like the Energizer Bunny to me. He doesn't stop moving. It's just constant movement, constant. He's his team's assist leader, his team's steals leader. To me, this team's not anywhere close to where they are without Devontae Chance.
Devontae Chance, only a junior, also leads the PSAC in steals, about 2.5 per game. Really, he is the true leader. You see him always in guys' faces, letting them know, giving them positive encouragement. 15th ranked IUP Crimson Hawks downing Slippery Rock. They will play Wednesday at UPJ, and the radio guys will have the call for it. Women and men will both be broadcast on 90.1 WIUP FM, so you'll definitely want to tune in for that. That's going to do it for our Crimson Huddle. Coming up next, my main man, Sean P. McCarthy, and his always entertaining 2-minute drill. We'll be back on The Big Hit.
Listen, all I'm saying is LeBron James is better than Michael
Oh,
Jordan.
Why did everybody get so quiet?
Welcome back to The Big Hit. This is a 2-minute drill, and I am Sean P. McCarthy. It's that time of year again. Super Bowl time. The pinnacle of the football season. The most watched game of the year. On one side, a record-breaking offense led by Peyton Manning, a man who won 4 MVPs and looking to earn his 5th in a few days. And he also threw a record-breaking 55 touchdown passes this season. And on the other, a devastating young defense, which was the #1 defense this year. A skittle-hungry running back that refused to be brought down and could go full beast mode at any given moment. But both teams were the #1 seeds in their conference. And on February 2nd, the Seattle Seahawks will meet the Denver Broncos at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Perhaps the most exciting thing to come out of this matchup is Richard Sherman. The second the Seattle Seahawks won the NFC Championship game, Sherman has not stopped talking or giving interviews. He's arguably the best corner in the league and brings a whole lot of intensity and passion to that brand of football. And he isn't afraid to show it. He shocked everybody with his remarks towards 49ers receiver Michael Crabtree. I, however, was not surprised at all by his actions. This is the way Sherman has been for the past 2 seasons. He has always been intense and physical with his play. It's just now getting the national attention because it happened on such a big stage. Early in the year, Sherman got punched in the face by Trent Williams of the Washington Redskins after a game for his cocky attitude. Richard Sherman plays exactly how I would want my cornerback to play if I was coaching a team. This is not patty cake time. It's the NFL. It's supposed to be a tough league filled with tougher players. And that persona is fading quickly in today's game. Sherman is putting the football back in the National Football League. In the hockey world, there's no better story right now than Jaromir Jagr. The Devils' winger has 16 goals and 28 assists thus far this season, and he leads his team in both of those categories. He is the most important player on the Devils right now, and he has passed former teammate Mario Lemieux in both career goals and assists earlier this season. Oh yeah, he's doing this at the age of 41. He's playing on his 4th team in 3 years and has instantly found chemistry with all those squads, and perhaps the most with the New Jersey Devils. Whether or not Jagr stays in New Jersey remains to be seen. I believe for a couple years with one team will benefit greatly for Jagr. He turns 42 in February and shows no sign of slowing down. When asked about his retirement, Jagr replied with saying he will play until he's 70 if his body lets him, so he can break Wayne Gretzky's records. Wayne's career records may be out of reach for this Czech superstar, but it's very comforting to know that a man is still enthusiastic and excited to play now as he did when he first entered the league. Jagr is currently 3 goals shy of knotting his 700th career goal, a huge milestone in hockey that only a handful of players have ever accomplished. That's all the time we have for today here at The Big Hit. For Director Danielle Eberty, producers Dimitri George and Dan Wallace, I'm Sean P. McCarthy. Don't be churlish. Keep it fresh.